Hello everyone, my name is Sunita and today we are doing lesson number 16, Analyzing Strategic Edge. Various topics that we have to study in this chapter are concept of business process reengineering, benchmarking, total quality management, Six Sigma, enterprise resource planning, industry 4.0, fintech, blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. So let us start with the first topic, which is business process reengineering. So we should understand as to what is business process reengineering. So business, as we know, is any activity which is done with an intention of earning profit. Process is all those series of activities that goes on in transforming your inputs into output. So all those series of activities that you do in order to deliver the right kind and quality of the goods to your customer in order to satisfy their needs. All those series of activities are processes. And re-engineering means redesigning. So when the organization radically redesign or radically transforms all its processes, all the things that the organization do in the company, then it is known as business process re-engineering. So the focus of re-engineering is on process, and here we are not talking about the partial modification of all those processes. We are talking about the complete change of the processes. So herein in this concept, the organization will look at what they are doing, why they are doing all those activities, and why they are doing in a way that they are following. So it is possible that the organization may be following certain processes since years without even pondering upon whether the way they are doing all those activities and what they are doing is actually value adding or not. There may be possible that the number of activities that the organization is doing at present may be non-value adding activities, which is only adding to more cost and time and thus frustrating your customers. So it is important for you to identify all those non-value adding activities, the redundant and the obsolete activities, and to remove them from your processes. This will definitely help you to save time and cost and to better serve your customers. So this is the focus of BPR. BPR is also known by a number of other names such as business process redesign, business transformation, business process change, business process reengineering. So here our main focus is to fabricate or redesign all the operations that we do. And this is done on the extensive scale. This is not just minor modification here and there, but we will redesign our processes from scratch. We'll redesign our processes as if this is the first day of the organization, and we'll rebuild each and every activity from start. So this is the act of recreating all your core business processes. Core business processes are the main processes which goes to deliver the right product to your customers. So we will redesign all those important processes which have the ultimate impact on the customer satisfaction. And the goal is to improve your product output, the quality of your product, and it will help you to reduce your cost and time also. Now, the primary objective of BPR is to eliminate the redundancies or the futile layers of the whole process. So in the entire processes, we'll see all those redundant and the non-value adding activities, and we'll eliminate them. We'll eliminate all the unnecessary cost that we are incurring by redesigning our process. Now, there are various definitions of BPR given by various authors. According to Hammer and Champy, BPR is fundamental rethinking. Please note this word, fundamental rethinking. So we'll rethink all our processes from start to end. We'll redesign all the processes, and this is done to achieve radical improvement. When the organization wants drastic improvement in the performance, drastic reduction in the cost, increase in quality, service, and speed, the organization will go with BPR. Now, re-engineering is all about business reinvention. It is not about the business improvement. We are not just talking about minor improvement or minor enhancement or modification. So BPR is an important concept which talks about complete change. Now, BPR, as pointed out by Hamper and Champy, is completely different from the concept of division of labor and specialization given by Adam Smith. So according to Adam Smith, the task should be divided into simple, small tasks, and each small task should be given to the specialist. But according to Hamper and Champy, when you are focusing on BPR, this kind of activity is not good. In BPR, we look at the entire process chain. We look at all the activities in collection. So we focus upon all the activities that we do, and this is completely opposite to focusing on the specialized tasks as given as emphasized by Adam Smith. So re-engineering is not about the marginal changes. This I have pointed out many times. It is not about making the marginal changes, but it will help you to achieve the quantum gains in your performance. So a large gain in your performance, if you want, you will focus on BPR. Now, BPR is the another form of process innovation, because you're completely innovating a completely new process. And that is why it is known as process innovation. And herein you try to recreate your entire process. Now, what is the origin of BPR? An important MCQ may come from this topic. Now, BPR became popular in 1990s, and this was because of the article that was published in Harvard Business Review. The title of the article was Re-engineering Work, Do Not Automate, Obliterate. So please remember the title of the work that created the awareness about the concept of BPR. The title was Re-engineering Work, Don't Automate, Obliterate. So this was published in Harvard Business Review. And this article was published by Michael Hemmer. So Michael Hemmer is the person who has given the contribution in making this concept popular. And Michael Hemmer was professor of computer science at MIT. So Hammer stressed that BPR can be done with the help of information technology, because information technology these days is impacting various business process. So the underlying principle of BPR is to demolish all the components of the work that are not adding any value, and the other components that are value adding should be automated. So you should identify all those processes which are non-value adding, you should remove them, whereas the other important process should be automated. So the core of the BPR is revolutionary, fast track and drastic change. So again and again, I'm talking about the same thing. We are aiming at drastic improvement. We are not just aiming at incremental improvement, the slow improvement. And if you want drastic improvement, definitely you need to make fundamental changes, the complete changes in the way you design your job, in your organization structure, and in the management systems. So there are various organizations that have practically in real life implemented this concept. You can read this paragraph on your own just to get an understanding. Now, what are the objectives of BPR? So there are different objectives with which any organization adopt this concept. So the first objective of BPR is to boost the effectiveness in which with which you are doing the activities. If you do all your activities with much more efficiency, it will help you to produce higher quality of the product for your end customer. So if you want to improve the quality of your product, if you want to improve the efficiency with which you are doing the activities, you can follow BPR. So it will help to improve the efficiency of your production process. It will help you to save the cost in long run. It will help in providing more meaningful work to the employees. The employees after BPR will do only those activities which are meaningful, which are adding some value, because all the redundant activities would be eliminated. So if you follow BPR, it will make all your processes more adaptable to the changes in the environment. Your processes will become flexible. And ultimately, BPR will help you to grow and expand your business. Now, typology of BPR project. Typology of BPR projects were given by Earl in 1994, and he identified 4-strand typology. Now, basically, BPR focuses on process improvement, and there are 4 important processes in which on which BPR focuses. So the 4 processes are core process, support process, business network process, and management process. Please remember the title, the 4-strand typology, or the 4 important processes on which BPR focuses. Now, the core processes are the important processes which are central to the functioning of any organization, and these core processes are also known as primary value chain activities. All these processes are done to ultimately satisfy your external customers, the real customers to whom you sell your product and ultimately gain profits. So if all those activities that you do in order to satisfy your external customers are core processes. Now, the example of core process is order fulfillment process. When the customer places the order of any product to your company, all the processes that goes on in ultimately delivering the product to the customer, from making to ultimately delivering, all the chain of the activities is the core processes. Now, support processes are the internal processes of the organization. They are known as back office processes, and they basically help your core processes. The support processes, as the name suggests, are supporting your core processes. These are also known as secondary value chain activities, and these processes are done internal to the organization for the internal customers. Now, the concept of internal customers says that every succeeding department is customer of preceding department. So if we talk about production, so the purchasing department will have production department as its customer, because purchasing department will deliver the purchased raw material to the production department. So production department will become customer, and preceding department, that is purchasing department, will become the seller. So herein we focus on doing each and every activity in such a manner in order to satisfy our internal customers. Now, internal processes that we actually do are relating to our information technology, financial system, and HR systems. Now, business network process. Business network is nothing but the connection that the organization have with the external entities. The organization is an open system and regularly interact with the external parties in order to procure some resources. For example, we enter into contact with our suppliers, our distributors, and customers. And in order to carry on the smooth business with all these external parties, we have to do certain activities or processes. So business network processes focuses on all those activities, all those processes that the organization do in order to maintain healthy relationship with the suppliers, distributors, and customers. And that's why business network processes extend beyond the boundary of the organization, because here we are talking about the relations with our external parties. Management processes are again internal to the organization, and these processes focuses on the ways in which the organization plan, organize, and control the resources. So all those processes that the organization do in order to make a proper strategy, in order to direct the working in the organization, and in order to daily manage the organization. So all the internal processes that we do in order to prepare the strategy or plan, implement, and control the plan, and it is known as management processes. So core process, support process, business network process, and management processes. Now, factors for the successful implementation of BPR. So according to Hamper and Champy, in 1993, they have written a book which is known as Change Management. So they say that BPR is nothing but a change management process only, because herein we are talking about fundamental change in the way we do our activities. And this change is done in order to enhance our business performance. So BPR provides us a blueprint on how we'll develop our new process, how we'll deploy various employees and resources in order to implement the designed new process, to control the new process, and finally to monitor the implementation of the process. So in BPR, we plan new process, we accumulate and employ or deploy the resources that we require in order to implement the new process. We see that the new process is properly implemented, we control, find out the gap, and take corrective actions. So that is all BPR do. According to Al-Mashari and Zairi, there are 5 important factors which can impact the successful implementation of BPR. So please remember, according to Al-Mashari and Zairi, in 1999, they have identified 5 factors that impact the successful implementation of BPR. Please remember the 5 factors and who have given these 5 factors. Now, the first factor is change in management. So if you are doing BPR, you may require to change your management itself, the top management. You may have to upgrade your management competencies. You may have to change your organization structure. You may have to change the way in which you manage your projects. And finally, IT. IT plays an important role in redesigning and implementing your new processes. Now, BPR focuses on the two challenges. When you go for BPR, you have to face the two challenges. First is your technical challenge, and the second is your socio-cultural challenge. Please remember the two challenges in BPR process. Now, technical challenges talks about creating the new processes with the help of IT, because you will have to automate all your processes with the help of IT. So this is a technical challenge, how to use technology in order to redesign your new processes. Now, second is a socio-cultural changes, which talks about the impact of the new processes on your employees. So whenever the new processes are designed, definitely the employees will face some kind of problem, and they may give a negative reaction or resistance to the change. So it is important for you to manage that resistance from your employees in order to make them accept the change in a smooth manner. And it is said that there are some reasons of failure of BPR, and mostly it is connected with your employees only. So if you are not able to manage the resistance of your employees against the change, your BPR will fail. Because any processes can be implemented smoothly only if all your employees support that process. And if not, the new process will fail. Communication breakdown. This means that when you're not communicating with your employees on time, you're not informing them as to what are the changes that will come in future, and you're not preparing them to accept those changes, then your new process will fail. So it is important that at each and every step, the management is in proper communication with the employees. Personal turnover during the transition. Some of the employees may not be able to bear the effect of changes, and they may fear all those changes, and instead of going through all those processes, they may feel it's better to leave the organization, and this ultimately increases the personal turnover, that is the employees leaving your organization at the fast rate. So all these pose a problem. Employees resist the change, management is not properly communicating them about the change, and personnel leaving the organization with the fear of change. You have to manage all these things, and if you're not able to manage your processes, your BPR will fail. Next, we'll talk about the steps of implementing BPR. Again, this is important. So there are a few steps that we have to follow if we want to do BPR in a proper manner, in order to revive a falling entity, or in order to increase our profits. If you want to increase our profits, if you want to improve the health of our organization, we have to do BPR following some steps. Now, this is basically a 5-step process. So the first step of BPR is define objectives and framework. So in the first step, we'll clearly define the objectives with which we are doing BPR. If our objectives are clearly laid down in a qualitative and quantitative terms, it becomes easy for us to focus. Without proper objectives, the employees could not decide where they should focus their energies and efforts. So it is important for us to clearly define our objectives. And secondly, we should communicate these objectives to our employees. We should communicate to them as to why the change is needed. And this is done in order to make sure that the employees have accepted the change. Change should not come as shock to your employees, else they'll resist. So it is important for us to tell them about each and every step of the change process. They should willingly accept the change. And this is important for the success of your BPR. The second step is to identify your customer needs. See, every activity that is done in the organization is ultimately to satisfy your customers. So it is important for us to identify who are our customers, what are their requirements, and what are the feedback of the customer about our existing processes. So after getting the proper understanding about our customer profile and their needs, we can redesign our new process. So the new processes must be able to deliver the value addition to our customer in order to satisfy them. In the third step, we'll study our existing process. So in order to identify as to what are the loopholes of our existing process, we are studying our existing process. This is also done in order to ensure that the mistakes that we are doing at present is not repeated with our new process as well. So for this, we'll have to understand the strength and weakness of our existing process. We can go for SWOT analysis. We'll formulate the redesign business plan. Ultimately, we'll formulate a new plan with all the modifications that we wanted in our existing plan. So these modifications are basically the basis of redesigning process. We'll completely modify the existing process. And this redesign processes is made after selecting the best process out of all the alternative, after analyzing all the alternative plans before us. We'll analyze all the alternatives and we'll select the best plan that would be our redesigned business plan. Finally, we'll implement the selected redesigning plan, because we know that the results come only by implementation and not just by making plans. So management have to ensure that the new processes that they have selected are operational, and the team of the employees have properly understood and implemented those new plans. So for this, for implementation, it is important that you have support of your team, of your employees. This is important for the success of your BPR. So these are the 5 important process of your BPR. Define your objectives, identify your customer needs, study your existing process, formulate the new plan, and implement the new plan. Now, then they have talked about the case studies of various companies that have implemented BPR in real life. You can just give it a read by yourself. Not important for your MCQ. So they have talked about the case study of Infosys and the case study of Ford. Just give it a read. Now, the next topic for today is benchmarking. Now, benchmarking is a concept which says that the organization should compare the way it works with the best performance in the industry. Basically, benchmarking provides us the standards with which we can compare our performance. When we compare our performance with the best performing company in the industry, we'll come to know about what we are lacking, where we are lacking, and where there is scope for improvement. And then we'll identify the causes of our different performance. We'll identify the ways in which we can upgrade our performance, and ultimately we can improve our performance. So that is what benchmarking does. So benchmarking is all about finding and implementing the best practices, best business practices. So basically benchmarking is considered as a tool for comparison. I already told you, herein we'll find out, supposedly there is one company A, and the company A is having the customer satisfaction rate of 85%. So this customer satisfaction rate may be considered as brilliant if it is seen on the standalone basis. But when the company A finds out that the best performing company in their industry is having the customer satisfaction rate of 95%, now their 85% is not looking as good enough. So they'll try to identify as to what they are doing, and as to what the best performing company in the industry is doing, and how the company is having 95% customer satisfaction rate. They'll try to identify the gap in their performance as to where they are lacking. They'll try to improve their performances on the basis of the working of the best company in the industry. And this is what benchmarking is. It provides you the realistic picture of your performance as to whether your performance is good enough compared to your competitors in the industry. So benchmarking is considered as a tool of comparison. You compare your performances of your business processes and the performance of your products with the best performance of the other companies. Now, these other companies can be inside your own business portfolio, or it can be outside your portfolio. And it can also be within the industry. It can also be outside your industry. You just have to identify the best performer, and it can be anywhere. The managers use this tool to identify the best practices of the other companies, and they finally implement all those best practices in their own processes. This is done to improve their performance. So improvement of the performance is the important goal of benchmarking. Please remember, improving your performance is the important goal of your benchmarking. So this example I already told you. And you should note that Xerox was the first company that have introduced the process of benchmarking. So Xerox is the company that introduced the process of benchmarking, and later on it has been used by other companies as well. Now we'll look at how benchmarking evolved as a modern strategic tools. So this is the benchmarking history. These are various names with which benchmarking has been known since years. So from 1950 to 1975, it was known as reverse engineering. 1976 to 86, it was known as competitive benchmarking. 1982 to 1986, process benchmarking. 88 and further, it was known as strategic benchmarking. And 1993, now we have global benchmarking. So this is benchmarking history. Just remember the years and the name of benchmarking. Now we have types of benchmarking. So there are major three types of benchmarking, and this was given by Tuminen and Bogan and English. So the three persons who have given the benchmarking, the major three types of benchmarking, please remember their names, very different names. So the three types of benchmarking are strategic benchmarking, performance benchmarking, and process benchmarking. In strategic benchmarking, we try to identify the best way to compete in the industry. So what are the methods in which we can defeat our competitors? In what ways we can make a winning strategies? In what way we can become the best performer in the industry, defeating all our competitors and getting the first position in the market? In what way we can compete? So in order to identify this, you will go for strategic benchmarking. We'll identify the successful companies in the industry and beyond industry, and we'll see as to how they are making the winning strategies, and we'll adopt all those methods in our strategic process also. In performance benchmarking, the company tries to identify what is the performance of the company's products and services compared to the performance of the product and services of the competitors. So basically, the company will try to identify their products, their service quality, the features of their products and services, the price of their product and services, the speed, reliability, design, customer satisfaction, etc. So they'll compare their performances on various parameters against the performance of the best industry performer, and thereby they'll identify the gap and try to improve. Then we have process benchmarking. So process is nothing but the series of activities that any organization would do. So herein the company will identify the processes of their company, and they'll compare it with the processes of the companies that are into the similar businesses. They'll identify the best practices, and they'll try to adapt the best practices into their own processes, and thereby they'll improve. So this is process benchmarking is considered as a part of performance benchmarking only. So these are the three types of benchmarking. In strategic benchmarking, we'll try to identify how we can compete and be best in the industry, how to make winning strategies. In performance benchmarking, we'll compare the performance of our product, services, the quality of our product and services, reliability, price, with the best performer in the industry. In process benchmarking, we'll identify the various activities that we do, and we'll compare our activities with the best performer in the industry. Now, there are various approaches of benchmarking. Please remember, these are two different types of benchmarking, and approaches of benchmarking are different. Now, approaches of benchmarking, internal benchmarking. In internal benchmarking, as the name suggests, our benchmark or our standard will be within the organization only. So we know that there are companies which operate in multiple geographic locations, and these locations can be inside the national boundary or it can be outside the national boundaries. So there are companies which are known as multinational companies which operate in different nations. And we also have companies that manufacture or sell varieties of product. They do not offer just single product in the market. They offer number of different product, plentiful product and services. And so they will have the different SBU units of different products. So herein what we do, we compare the performance of one unit with the performance of the another unit within the same group. And herein we'll try to find out as to why one unit performance is better compared to the other units. What are the things that one particular unit is doing which is making them best? And the unit that is lacking will then try to upgrade its performance on the basis of this benchmarking. So internal benchmarking is used to compare the work of one team, unit or divisions with the another in the same group. And then the team that is lacking will understand the ways in which the other unit is performing best, and the units in the group will share the knowledge across the group companies, and this will help in improving the performance of the entire group of the same company. So we can take example of Tata's. So here we can say that Tata is a conglomerate into multiple product. So TCS, Tata Motors, these are different companies. So if TCS tries to see as to how Tata Motors is managing its work, and if TCS try to learn from the way in which Tata Motors is doing its work, this is known as internal benchmarking. Now, in external benchmarking or the competitive benchmarking, our benchmark or the standard is not inside the group, but it is outside our group. So herein, if Tata tries to learn from the performance of Honda, this is known as competitive or external benchmarking. So the company compares its performance with the competitors. And these competitors can be inside the industry itself, because your competitors should be within the same industry. So that's why known as external or competitive benchmarking. You compare your performance against your competitors. So that is the important part. Now again, there are certain authors who say that external benchmarking is not only with our competitors within the same industry. It can also be done with the other companies which are outside our industry as well. So these are different ways in which different authors have defined. Some says that external benchmarking should be within the same industry. Some says that it can be within or outside the industry. So functional benchmarking. The third is functional benchmarking. In functional benchmarking, the managers of the functional department find it useful to analyze how well they are performing in their own functional areas. They compare their performances with the other functional areas. So we have different functional areas in our businesses, such as finance, HR, operations. So if one functional manager compares its performance against the another functional manager in the same company or in the another companies, this is known as functional benchmarking. So if the production department of Tata Motors compares its performance against the production department of Honda, so herein it is known as functional benchmarking, because here one functional department is comparing its performance against the another functional department of the another companies, right? So this they are doing in order to find out the best practices and improve their own functional performance. In generic benchmarking, generic benchmarking basically says that the organization will not focus on identifying the best performance of a particular organization. So here our standard would not be a single organization. Here our standard could be more than one organization. Your company will compare its performance against more than one company in the industry. You will not compare your performance only against a particular single organization, but against more than one companies. And these companies can be within your industry or it can be outside your industry. When the organization wants to improve generally in different areas, if you want to improve together, so you will go for generic benchmarking. You will not focus on a single product or single process, and you will not even compare your performance with a single company. You will compare your performance across the different functions with different companies in your industry or outside your industry. So herein you will try to identify the general standards in different areas, which will help you to improve your overall performance. So that's what is the aim of your generic benchmarking. So these are different approaches. Internal benchmarking, wherein your standard is within the same group. External benchmarking, where your standard is outside the group, and it can be within the same industry or outside your industry. Functional benchmarking, we compare the performance of a single function of your company with that of the function of the another company. Generic benchmarking, we compare the different functions with different companies in different industries. So the scope of generic benchmarking is very wide. Now, what are the advantages of benchmarking? Benchmarking as a concept is very easy to understand and use. It can be understood very easily and it can be used without any problem. And if benchmarking is done properly, it will help any organization to reduce the cost and achieve huge gains or profits. Benchmarking help the organization to come up with the innovative ideas in which they can improve their performance. Benchmarking provides us insights about how the other companies in the industry are performing, what are their operations, what are their processes, and where we are lacking. So it provides you the proper understanding about what your position is in your industry. It increases our awareness regarding the cost and level of performance of our rivals. We get the proper understanding of about our rival performance. So it also facilitates the cooperation between various teams, units, and divisions. So whenever the organization feels that their performance is less than their competitors, all the teams, units, and divisions of the organization come up together in order to remove all those gaps and increase the performance. So benchmarking helps us to gain the cooperation of each and every person in the organization to improve. Disadvantages. So there are certain disadvantages of this concept as well. Now, the first disadvantage is that this process requires you to identify your benchmarking partner. So in order to do benchmarking, you should identify the best performing company in the industry. And this is not an easy task because you need to have lots of information regarding the number of companies in the industry. And on the basis of that comparison and analysis of the data, you can identify the best. And this is not an easy task to gather the information, to analyze and identify the best performer. And sometimes it is impossible to assign a metric to measure the performance. There are certain processes wherein you cannot identify the areas in which you want to improve. The organization may not be able to identify, to measure their processes and to measure the processes of the competitors. And wherein you're not able to measure the performance itself or your processes, you cannot go for benchmarking. There are certain areas wherein this kind of measurement and comparison is not possible at all. And benchmarking needs to hire a consultant or an expert. When the organization is doing benchmark for the first time, they may have certain doubts, certain problems while implementing. And so you need to hire certain experts, and this will definitely add to cost. So initial cost is very high if you want to implement benchmarking. And managers often resist changes. So benchmarking brings certain changes in your existing processes. Whenever you try to upgrade your performance compared to your competitors, you will make certain changes in your existing processes where you are finding that you are lacking. But all those changes are definitely not welcomed by all the managers. Even employee resists the changes because managers and employees are mostly happy with the way the things are going at present. So they are not in favor of any changes, which benchmarking makes you to do. And that's why this process may fail. So these are certain advantages and disadvantages of benchmarking. Now we'll talk about benchmarking wheel. Please understand this. The benchmarking wheel basically talks about the various stages following which you can implement benchmarking. So benchmarking wheel model was first brought out in article Benchmarking for Quality. So please remember this, benchmarking for quality was the first article which talked about benchmarking. And this talks about 5 stages of benchmarking. So the first stage of benchmarking is plan. In this stage, you will plan or you will decide, you will clearly define what you want to compare and assign the metrics to it. First of all, you should be clear with the objectives as to what you want to attain by doing benchmarking, wherein you want to improve, what are the processes wherein you want to do benchmarking. So you have to identify all those processes in which you want to go for benchmarking. Definitely you will do benchmarking for all those processes wherein you feel that you are lacking behind. You will identify those processes and then you will assign the measures on the basis of which you will compare your performance in those processes with the performance of the best performer in the industry. Now, second step is to identify your benchmarking partners. You will identify the best performer in the industry or outside in order to compare your performance with them. In the third step, you will choose the methods and gather the data for the metrics defined. You'll find out your performance on those parameters. You'll find out the performance of the best performer on those parameters. Basically, you are gathering the data about your performance and your competitors' performance on the defined metrics, right? Fourth is you'll analyze. You'll analyze the data that you have gathered about your performance and the best performer performance. You'll identify the gap in your performance. You'll identify where you are lacking and where your competitors are doing good. And this will help you to provide the results and recommendations. Fifth step, you'll try to improve. After gathering the information about where you are lacking and how you can improve, you can finally implement the changes that are required in your product, your services, your processes, and your strategy. So after identifying your gap, you can get a clear idea about where the improvement is needed and how those improvement can be carried out. And then you can make those improvement practical. So this is known as benchmarking wheel. Please remember the 5 steps. You'll have to plan the objectives. You will have to decide the areas in which you want to go for benchmarking. In the second stage, you will have to find out the benchmarking partner or the standard against which you will evaluate your performance. You'll have to collect the data about your performance and the performance of your competitors on the decided parameters. You'll have to analyze, you'll have to find out the gap, and you'll have to decide the various ways in which you can remove those gaps. And finally, you have to implement all that you have decided in your stage number 4. And finally, they are talking about the various case studies. The first case study is that of Xerox, which is the company that introduced the benchmarking system, right? So then, yeah, that's it. They are talking about the case study of Xerox. You can read it on your own. Now, the next concept that we have to study is the concept of total quality management. The concept of total quality management is given by Edward Denham. Please remember his name. It is given by Edward Denham. Now, what is total quality management? Total means that in order to maintain your quality, you require the support of each and every person working in the organization. Quality maintenance is not the responsibility of only the quality department. It is the responsibility of each and every person, the organization in totality. So even if you are working in a production department, marketing department, if you are working at the top level, middle level, bottom level, each one of you have the responsibility to do your own work in a way that ensures the excellent quality of the product and services that you provide to your customers. So again, total quality management focuses on quality improvement, which is the key for customer satisfaction and profit maximization. Now, the question comes as to what is quality? Now, quality is defined as a degree of excellence. Whenever the customer purchases any product, he has certain expectation regarding the performance, the endurance, the maintainability, and the other attributes. And if your product is able to match with the customer expectation or exceed the customer expectation, then and then only you can say that you have provided a qualitative product. So quality is nothing but meeting the expectation of customers. And if you want to do that, you must install the concept of TQM in all your production processes. The concept of TQM should also be there in the stage of product development to the stage of product delivery. In each and every step, you should see that the quality is maintained, and it is the responsibility of every person in the organization. So total is nothing but sum total of every activity that you do, every job, every resource, every output, every person, every time and every place. So everywhere you have to ensure that you are providing good quality. Now it is interesting to know that this concept has origin in Japan. The Edward Denham has introduced this concept in Japan, and this was basically done in order to rebuild the economy of Japan after World War II. So after World War II, the economy of Japan was totally destroyed, and in order to improve or enhance the economy once again, this concept was introduced. TQM is a concept that focuses upon continuous quality improvement. So it talks about continuously improving your quality each and every day. And it also focuses upon the quality of your employer-employee relationship, quality with which the company interacts with the customer and the other business partners, the quality of the product and services. So it's talk about the quality of every aspect of the organization. TQM or total quality is a development of a culture and attitude wherein the organizational employees focuses on providing the good quality product to the customer, the products that satisfy the needs of the customer. So the TQM culture requires that quality is included in each and every operations that the organization do and each and every processes that the organization follow. It focuses that all the work should be done in the right time and the first time. All the activities that we do should be done right in the first time itself. So if we do the activities in the right manner in the first time itself, we avoid wastages, we avoid the additional cost that occurs because of wastages. So we have to ensure that every activity is done in a correct manner at the starting point itself. The American Society for Quality Control, ASQC, has defined total quality management as the management approach to long-term successes through customer satisfaction. So this concept helps you to gain customer satisfaction by improving the quality of your product and services. TQM is based upon participation of all members. That is what total means. Total means it is responsibility of all members connected with each and every processes, each and every product and services of your organization. So TQM is nothing but the way you work. It is culture of the working of the organization. TQM ultimately benefits every person of the organization and also of the society, because this concept helps you to provide qualitative product, avoid wastages and unnecessary cost. Now, this concept of TQM has been followed or has been given by the various authors such as Philip Crosby, Edward Denham, Amrat Feigenbaum, and Koray Ishikawa and Juran. So these are different persons, Crosby, Denham, Feigenbaum, Ishikawa, and Juran, who are defined as the quality leaders, and their teachings include the concept of TQM. TQM is considered as a management philosophy, and which views that the organization is nothing but the group of various processes such as finance, design, engineering, production, customer services. And TQM stresses that all those processes should be done in a manner which satisfies the customer needs and help in achieving organizational objectives. So organization is nothing but the group of process, and all processes should be done in the qualitative manner. The simple objective of TQM is to do the things right and right for the first time, every time. Please remember this. This can definitely come in your multiple choice question. What is the simple objective of or the basic objective of TQM? TQM help us to do all the things in a proper manner. We have to do those things right in the first time itself. There is no place for trials. There is no place for unnecessary wastages. And things are to be done correctly in every time that we do. Originally, this concept was used in manufacturing operations only, but later on, this concept have now been accepted as a generic management tool, and it is now used in number of service and public sector organizational as well. ISO has defined TQM as a management approach of the organization which is centered on quality. So the focus of TQM is on maintaining good quality, and which can be done only on the basis of participation of all the members of the organization. Quality is the responsibility of each and every person. Every person have to do their job in a correct manner in the first time and every time. This will help to attain the long-term benefits for the members, for the organization, and for the society as well. So again, we have the definition given by Brockman. And according to him, TQM is a management philosophy which embraces all the activities done in the organization, which is done to satisfy the needs of the customer, community, and objective of the organization. TQM ensures that all the things are done in a proper manner and everyone connected with the organization is satisfied. And this requires the participation of employees in a drive for continuous improvement. There are certain companies that have implemented this concept in real life. These companies are Ford Motor, Philips Semiconductor, SGL Carbon, Motorola, and Toyota Motor Car Company. These are companies that have practiced TQM in real life. Now, there are different activities wherein TQM is foundation for various activities which include, so TQM can be, TQM requires all these things. TQM requires all these things, and then only you can properly implement TQM. First of all, TQM requires support and commitment from your senior management and all employees. If the persons working at different level and different departments are not giving proper commitment to this concept will fail. So it requires commitment of top management of all the employees working in the organization. It requires you to meet your customer requirements. Your customer is the center point of your quality management systems. You should keep the needs and the demands of your customer in mind while doing all your activities. Then this concept help you to reduce the cycle time. Now cycle time is nothing but the time that is between when the customer places the order, and the time when you ultimately deliver the product to the customer. The time in between is known as cycle time. So TQM help us to reduce this cycle time by doing the activities right at the first time. Because if we do the activities wrong in the first time, again we have to do it once again, and this will definitely incur the additional cost and time and ultimately frustrate our customer. So we focus on reducing the cycle time by doing every activity properly with good quality. This concept focuses on just-in-time demand flow manufacturing. That means we should not produce in bulk. We should only produce according to the demand. So if the demand in the market is of 1000 units, we should never go for production of 1200 units. That is what this concept says. Because if you produce additional finished goods, you will have to incur the cost of storing them in your warehouse, and you also have to incur the risk of obsolescence of that finished material or damage of that material. This will definitely add to more cost. So you have to follow just-in-time manufacturing system. Improvement teams, the team of different functional employees should be made. A team should be made wherein different members of different functional department should participate, and these teams should be labeled as improvement teams. These teams should work upon finding out the various methods in which they can improve their existing processes, and then they should ultimately implement the good suggestions. TQM help us to reduce the cost that goes on in making our product and services. TQM help us to facilitate improvement. This concept help us in improving the quality of our products. Line management ownership. This concept requires that the various managers working at different level should consider that they own the responsibility to do the tasks that have been allotted to them. They should consider themselves as owner of their work, and that's why they should feel that what they are doing is for themselves, and that way they should give utmost commitment to their work. Employees should be involved and empowered. Employee working in every department, every level should be given enough powers to make their own decisions, and they should be involved in each and every task that is, or each and every important decision that is taken by the top management. Whenever the employee achieves the targets or improves the quality, they should be recognized, and they should be given awards, rewards, and there should be celebration party. The organization should always make the challenging quantified goals, and they should go for benchmarking. In order to do the quality improvement, in order to go for TQM, you can follow benchmarking. Benchmarking help you in improving your quality. So for doing TQM, you can follow benchmarking as well. You can learn from the performance of the best performer in the industry and ultimately upgrade your quality. This TQM concept focuses on processes. It focuses on the way we do our activities and help us in improving our activities, the performance of our activities. Specific incorporation in the strategic planning. So it says that the top management should focus or include the concept of TQM in making strategic plans as well. This will show the commitment of the senior management to the employees working down the line. So these are different activities which serve as foundation of your TQM. TQM requires support of senior management and all the employees. It focuses on customer requirements and satisfaction. It helps us in reducing the cycle time. It requires us to go for just-in-time manufacturing system. It requires that the team of different functional members should be there and who should work for improving the quality of the processes that goes on in the organization. It helps us in reducing the products and services cost. It helps us in making improvements. it requires that the line manager should own the responsibility to do the tasks that have been allotted to them in a proper manner. Employee should be involved and empowered. Whenever the employee achieves the target, they should be recognized and rewarded. The organization should go for making challenging goals and also go for doing benchmarking in order to improve the quality. This concept focuses on improvement of processes, and the concept of TQM should be given due importance by the top management while making strategic plans as well. Now we have certain principles of TQM, but we will read the principles from this part. And these principles, you can just give it a brief read, just read these principles on your own. But remember this point, this is considered as a TQM cycle, which is PDCA. So they may ask you in multiple choice question as to what is PDCA. PDCA is nothing but plan, do, check, and act. So in this point, we say that first of all, we should plan the activities which we want to improve. The top management should direct each and every employee to participate in TQM. They should do whatever the top management have decided, they should implement that. And there should be proper participation of all the employees at all the levels. The top management should review the activities that are done in the organization in order to find out whether the things are done in an appropriate manner. And they should act, that is, on the basis of the results that they have gathered on the basis of implementation. They should check as to where the improvement are needed, and they should go for those improvements. So plan is making the plans, and do is implementing those plans. Checking is to check the results that they have got, and act is to make corrective actions. PDCA cycle of TQM. Please remember PDC, just this. If you have to remember only this point from this part, just this. Rest you can leave. Then we'll talk about the characteristics of total quality management. Now let us understand the characteristics of total quality management. So first important characteristic of total quality management is total involvement of all your employees. This concept I have been telling you again and again, that TQM requires total support of all the employees working at every level of the organization in every department or unit. And for this, it is important that your employees should be empowered, they should be valiant, enthusiastic, they should understand as to what are the operations going on in the organization, they should understand the importance of those operations, and they should be ready to give the level of the performance which is important for improving the efficiency. Your employee involvement can be attained if you have a culture of continuous improvement and team empowerment. Customer focus. So TQM requires that the organization should work in a way that satisfies the needs of the customers. If customer is satisfied, the organization will be able to attain the objectives and get good profits. So TQM focuses on the end customers, and it requires that the quality of the organizational products and services should be good enough to ensure the success. Any effort that the organization does, may it be employee training, infrastructure upgrade, software investment, product releases, all the activities that you do ultimately aims in benefiting or satisfying your customers. Continuous improvement. TQM, the organization who implement TQM practices does not believe in maintaining the same level of quality, but they believe on enhancing the quality each day. So the organizational top management focuses on promoting the culture of innovation and creativity that will help to exceed the customer expectation and help the organization to remain competitive and beat the competitors to gain the market share. In total quality management, you follow the process approach. Process approach says that every activity that the organization does should be focused. So entire process is divided into series of steps or activities, and these activities can be carried out in the internal or the external of the organization. All the activities, whether done internally or externally, should be analyzed, measured, and improved when we are focusing upon total quality management. Each and every activity, not just the function, but all the activities that are done in a single function should be analyzed and improved. System approach. Now, system says that all the interrelated activities should be managed as a system. So you have to make a group of the interrelated activity, and they should be managed properly. So you should understand the impact that one activity has on the another activity in a system, and that way you should understand whether one activity is done in a improper manner, it could have a negative impact on the another activity that follows. And so you have to manage all the activities in a system in a proper manner. Fact-based decision. This says that the organization that follows TQM take decision only on the basis of data. A proper data is useful in taking decision in deciding the business directions, the future goals, and the organization make predictions of future on the basis of the historical data. So every decisions, every prediction is on the basis of data and not on the basis of guesswork or intuition. Leadership and strategy definition. So the organization usually make a strategic plan which includes the clear definition of vision, objectives, goals. And when you follow TQM, all those vision, objectives, and goals should be in line with the quality component, should include quality component. Leadership in the organization is must. Leaders should provide the proper direction to the organization. Leaders should act as TQM advocates. Leaders should create the environment wherein each and every activity is done up to the quality, and this helps the organization to achieve the objective. Mutually beneficial relationship with the suppliers. The organization depends upon the supplier, as we know, for getting the raw materials and the other services which will help it to carry on the internal activities. So it is important that we have a very healthy and mutually beneficial relationship with our suppliers. Because see, if the quality of the material provided by the supplier is not good, you cannot ensure in making the good quality finished goods. So it is important for you to make healthy relation with your suppliers so that they are providing you the right quality of the material at right cost and at the right time. So these are the important characteristics of TQM. If you have all this done very properly, TQM will be implemented very smoothly. Then we have total 8 principles of total quality management. Now, these 8 principles are almost the same as characteristics that we studied just now. First point is customer focused. This means that customer ultimately determines the level of quality. Quality, as I already told you, is defined from the angle of customer. Customer have certain expectations while buying the product. And if you meet those expectations, it means that you have provided a good quality product. So every activity that the organization do is ultimately to satisfy the needs of customer. Total employee involvement. Again, total quality management requires participation of all the employees towards attaining the common goals of the organization. This can only be done when the fears of employee are removed. So employees have certain fears. When you implement the concept of TQM, they feel that they will not be able to do it, and there are some other doubts. So first of all, you have to remove all those doubts from the minds of the employees and gain their confidence. And there should also be the scenario of employee empowerment, where the employee are given proper space wherein they can take their own decisions and decide their own destiny. Management should also provide them proper environment of proper motivation and rewards. Self-managed work teams can be created where the employee formulate themselves in team in order to do certain tasks. Process center. TQM focuses on process improvement. So I already told you, process is nothing but the series of steps that goes on from getting the inputs from the supplier, then transforming them into output, and ultimately delivering them to customer. So all those activities that goes on from getting the raw materials till delivering the finished goods to the customer, all those activities are known as process. And in TQM, we analyze each and every activity of the process, and we try to improve all those activities, detect the unexpected variations, and upgrade our performance. Integrated system. So herein we talk about that, even though the organization is divided into different functions, there are certain activities which connect these functions, and therefore all these activities should not be handled in an individual manner. We should understand that one functional activity impacts the another functional activity, and so all these functional activities are actually related. And so all these functional activities should be carried out in a form of a system. We should understand the impact that one activity has on the another, and so we should do all these activity as an integrated system. Strategic and systematic approach. So it is important that the top management views quality in its strategic and systematic plan. So whenever top management make vision goals of the organization, they should include the quality as the core component while defining these themes. Continual improvement. TQM talks about continuous improvement. As I already told you, the organization that focuses on TQM does not focus on maintaining the same level of quality, but they try to improve the quality. They try to find out the various innovative methods, creative methods in which they can upgrade their quality in order to remain competitive and meet the shareholders' expectation. Fact-based decision. When you are following TQM, the organization will take the decision only on the basis of proper data. The organization will find out the data, they'll collect the data, they'll analyze the data and take the improved decision on the basis of data. So the organization does not take data on the basis of guesswork or intuition, but on the basis of proper data. Communication. This requires that the organization maintains effective communication in order to motivate the employee, in order to boost their morale. So if the employee is informed about what is going on in the organization, if the employee is involved in the decision-making activity, definitely the employee feel valued and their morale increases. So the employee should be communicated about all the strategies, methods, and the time within which they are to be implemented. So these are the principles of TQM. TQM is customer focus. TQM requires total employee involvement. It focuses on process improvement, the activities that the organization does. We have to improve all those activities. The related activities should be viewed as a system. We should understand the impact of one activity on the another. The top management should include the concept of quality as a core component while taking important strategic decisions. This concept requires continuous improvement. We have to improve our quality each day with the help of innovative and creative methods. Decisions will be taken only on the basis of performance-related data. We have to communicate with our employees at all the times, at the time of change, and also during the time of normal day-to-day operations. Now, the concept of continuous improvement by TQM. So TQM requires the continuous improvement in all the works that goes on in the organization. It requires improvement at high level strategic planning, normal day-to-day decision making, the execution done at shop floor. Each and every activity should be improved. So it stems from the belief that mistakes can be avoided and detected and defects can be prevented. TQM says that all the mistakes and defects can be identified and prevented. So you can, this will lead to the continuous improvement in all the aspects of work. It can improve the capabilities, people, processes, technology, and machine capabilities. So TQM says that if you do all the activities in a proper qualitative manner, you can improve the performance and thereby avoid the defects and problems. So TQM deals with continuous improvement and it focuses on 5 major areas of capability improvement. So you can improve in 5 different areas. You can improve on demand generation. If you provide good quality product to the customer, definitely you can generate the heavy demand of your product and services in the market. Supply generation talks about the procurement of right quality of material at the right time from your suppliers while maintaining good relations with them. And that way you can ensure that the material is continuously supplied to you and your production systems are not halted due to scarcity of raw material. Technology. TQM requires that quality can be improved by implementing right quality for doing various processes. Operations, you can improve your day-to-day operations by following TQM philosophy, and you can improve the capability of the employees at each and every level in the organization by following this philosophy. So you can generate heavy demand, you can ensure continuous supply of raw materials, you can work with technology in order to improve your systems. You can improve the operational capability and reduce the cost and time. You can improve your people capability by empowering them. The next concept of TQM is implementation principles and processes. Now, according to this part, they say that first of all, the organization should assess its current reality. So before implementing TQM, you should analyze your current situation. You should assess where the organization is at in present. You should analyze organization history, the current needs, the current product and services it is providing in the market, the existing employee profile, the quality of the employee. All this, that means the current scenario you should analyze. And after analysis, if you find that the organization has a track record of responsiveness, the organization has been very responsive to the environment, then you can easily implement TQM. This means that if the organization has been analyzing environment in future and has been adapting to the environment, TQM can be easily implemented in these kind of proactive organizations. But there are certain organizations who are not proactive and who do not respond to the environment on time. That means they have no track record of responsiveness. So in these kind of organization, the employees are very, dull. There is lack of the skilled change agents. The leaders are not even acting as a change agents. So when this kind of condition prevails, it is important for you to first of all upgrade your management and leadership by giving them proper development programs. And in order to get the proper understanding about where the organization is at present, you can go for management audit. So you should do management audit in order to understand the current levels of the organizational performances and the areas in which the organization need to change. So the organization, it is said that should be healthy before you want to implement TQM. And if the position is that the organization is not in a healthy position, such as it has unstable funding base, weak administration system, lack of managerial skill, poor employee morale, then TQM is not appropriate. First of all, you have to remove all those problems, make the organization healthy, and then only you can implement TQM. And again, they say that at certain time the organization is into crisis, but that crisis should not be very disabling. That means if the organization is into major crisis, TQM cannot be implemented at all. But if the organization is into minor crisis, the organization may feel a sense of urgency to implement TQM in order to remove all those crises. And to come out of that crisis, TQM can be helpful when the organization has a proper leader. So there should be a proper leader who can develop a new vision for the organization. Then the leader should implement that vision and plan. The leader should become a prime mover of changes. He should take charge of championing the new idea and showing others as to how it will help them to get where they want to do. So if the organization is into minor crisis, TQM can be implemented, provided that there is an effective leader who provides the vision, make the plans and implement that plan in order to, and also get the commitment from all the employees in the organization, show them how they can reach where they want to reach. And finally, the leader should take appropriate actions in order to ensure that all the plans are properly implemented and institutionalized. So this paragraph says that only a healthy organization can implement TQM properly. If the organization is into major crisis, major problems, then TQM cannot be implemented. First of all those problems should be removed. And finally, conclusion, which says that TQM requires cooperation of every person in the organization from top to bottom. It requires cooperation of shop floor workers and even manager. So there are different authors who have defined this concept of TQM in a different manner. These authors include Denham, Jiran, Ishikawa. They all have defined in a different manner, but the core assumptions are same. The core philosophy of TQM as defined by them is same. So according to them, TQM is a discipline and a philosophy of management which institutionalizes plan and continuous improvement and assumes that quality is the outcome of all the activities that take place within the organization. All functions and employees have to participate in the improvement process that organization needs, both quality system and quality culture. So according to them, quality is must if the organization wants to grow. The organization should always go for continuous quality improvement. Quality improvement is not just a one-time process. You have to continuously upgrade your systems, your way of working. And to do that, you require support of every person in the organization. All the functional people, all the employees should participate. The organization should have quality systems as well as quality culture. And then they are talking about the quality management uh, practices of Ford Motor. This you can read on your own.